Ooh, we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas. Good to be back. We took a little hiatus, a little break from an amazing football season. Not as great basketball season, but nonetheless, the boys are back. Recruiting never stops. College football 25 is here. The trailers have dropped. Texas might be the most, we could debate that a little bit too on the show. Texas might be the most fun team to play with in this upcoming video game, which is maybe the most anticipated sports video game of the century.
How many people are switching out Arch Manning for Quinn?
I think it's going to depend on what the speed is. Like if Arch is in the speed at 80, if he's like somehow an 80 speed plus and like Quinn is like under 70, you'll see people switch it out. People are always going to go to the running quarterback, and we're Longhorn fans, which is a reason I said we might be the most fun team to play with. We'll definitely have one of the best offensive lines, one of the best receiving groups and running back groups, and obviously one of the best quarterbacks from an offensive standpoint to play with. But there are teams who represent good running quarterbacks. Like Alabama is going to be fun to play with Jalen Milroe. Colorado is going to be a heavily played with team with Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Or Will Howard, if he's the quarterback, he will be the quarterback for Ohio State. That'll be a really fun team to play with as well. Plus, they have the Oregon, Dylan Gabriel. Yeah. So there are going to be teams that are fun to play with. I do imagine with a bevy of weapons, and we're going to get into the recruiting rate just a second. We have from the transfer portal, looking at already the 2025 mock drafts, Isaiah Bond being a top 25 pick mentioned already. And like we had that with Worthy. We didn't even have that with A.D. Mitchell. So he's a guy I'm really looking forward to watching and playing with. And plus, the run game is the run game I feel maybe is a bit more massive in the college football games than it was in the Madden games. So having B&B to work with Baxter and Blue, I think is going to be pretty exciting as well. So I think that's why I lean us as a top 3 team to play with, and it's not even that hot to take.
If Quinn Ewers is under 70 speed, that needs to be checked because
he'll be under 80, but not under 70.
Yeah. He's 78 maybe is a fair ranking, but realistically, like when he says I'm going to run the football, he's got wheels. He can run. Yeah, for sure. And obviously Arch can move too.
And he keeps getting thinner and thinner.
Which means, he's trying to run 40-yard dashes, break records at the combine next year. I saw a mock draft that had him going 10th to the Raiders.
Wow.
Obviously incredibly early.
Back to back. They didn't take a quarterback.
No, they took Brock Bowers.
Right.
Yeah. So that will be a need for them, presumably going into next year's draft. The number 1 pick was the Carolina Panthers. Can you guys guess who they selected?
James Pierce, Tennessee.
Incorrect.
Ooh.
It was a spicy mock draft.
So
quarterback?
They taking Shedeur?
No, he went 5th, I think.
Carson Beck?
Yeah, they took Beck 1. I think Shedeur was 5. I think Hunter was 4. Quinn was 10, and then everyone else was.
They gotta try to
offensive or defensive line.
Like this is a whole other discussion, but the Panthers gotta try to make it work with Bryce Young because they just gave up way too much of their draft capital and put their organization in such a bind that they have to see this through and not just take a mulligan and redo it.
It's almost similar to like a Sarkisian situation. Like year 1, Sark wasn't great. Like his record wasn't great. Things weren't great. Like you almost have to view it as like a literal like mulligan year 1 for Bryce Young, like year 1 for Sark. Let them get things in the building and like actually get a team in place that they have more control over, and then see how they do and treat that as like a real year 1.
It takes time. I mean, I saw already rumblings that Caleb Williams got benched in OTAs because he threw a bunch of interceptions on 7-on-7 drills. Like these guys have a huge, massive curve that they have to adjust to coming from college to the NFL. And so size definitely plays a role into it. Bryce is a little bit smaller, but still, like at the end of the day, like you have to give these guys time to get involved and get seasoned in the league. And the Panthers were not in a place where they're going to have success for this guy right off the bat. They're already in a bind with their roster makeup because they gave up so much and they were so bad last year, and they should have been picking number 1 overall again this year. And they haven't picking number 1 overall again this next year. So it's like, how can you expect a quarterback to strive in that type of environment?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing that happened with Trevor Lawrence. His head coach also got fired in the middle of the season, just like Bryce Young's did. Neither of them had good rookie QB seasons. So still a lot of hope for them. I definitely don't think that Carson Beck, if they are the worst team in the NFL, which I think all three of us predicted on our sister pod, Stripe Sports. No, is that incorrect, Josh?
I said the Giants were going to be the worst team in the NFL.
I have to check that. Okay.
I did.
Then you had the Panthers as the second worst team in the NFL. So either way, I don't think they should be selecting Carson Beck. I don't think they will select Carson Beck, even if they are the worst team in the NFL. They can explore other options. But Quinn was 10th, and then Banks, I think, was either 15th or 16th. The picks didn't go past 20 in the mock that I was looking at. So
nice.
Bond wasn't on there, but according to you, he could be in the 20s and could have the possibility of even going higher.
I mean, Banks certainly could. I mean, him and Will Campbell, the tackle for LSU, will be competing for the top tackle taken, presumably. And we all like Carson Beck. It's like no shake on him. But Quinn can firmly be in the mix. I mean, we see that all the time.
And you never know on defense, too. I mean, we had guys kind of come out of nowhere this last season. I mean, I know we were all high on Byron Murphy, but he was not projected to be a first-round pick, even a second-round pick heading into the season. And he played his way in there as the first Longhorn taken in this year's draft. So the guys who step up and replace T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy have a great opportunity to put their talents on the showcase and earn their way into the first, second round.
For sure.
Yeah,
definitely. Alfred Collins have a big year.
Yeah, Collins. I mean, look, dude, Trey Morris transferred in. Like he was great at UTSA, and we've seen UTSA guys get drafted. So there's no reason he can't come in. I'm not saying, and that goes to the Bryce Young point of like, okay, the NFL, like there's a huge jump from the SEC to the NFL in speed and game size. Like the Big 12 is really competitive, but there is going to be a major jump in game speed and size of players in the SEC that we're going to be facing. So I don't anticipate Trey Moore to have that same level of production that he had at UTSA. But you don't get 14.5 sacks in Division I by accident. He's still going to produce at a pretty high level. And I'm hoping and anticipating he adjusts with the rest of the team. And again, like, this SEC move that we've talked about, not ad nauseum because it's not even here yet, right? It is already, I think, paying massive dividends on the recruiting trail. Great year moving to the SEC. Like it's paying major dividends in the recruiting trail. You talk about the draft, like, and Nick, you'll give us the skinny on who we're in the mix for from the receiver bunch in just a hot second. We had 2 receivers going the top 50 picks. We had a tight end taken in the 4th round, a running back taken in the 2nd round. It's four skill position players taken in the first 120 picks. That's up there with the best teams. So if you're a skill position player and you're a young recruit and you want to come in,
we were the 2nd most drafted team in this draft this year behind Michigan, and Michigan set a record. We set our own school record this year. So, I mean, if we can keep that going every single season, I mean, it's hard to catch lightning in the bottle and continue to, put out 10, 11, 12, 13 NFL draft prospects every year, because then you're a college football playoff team. Because, I mean, it wasn't by mistake that the top 4 teams, when it came to most players drafted, were all in the playoff. Or I think the top 5. So, Bama was up there, Michigan was up there, we were up there, Washington was up there. Obviously Ohio State's always up there, but those are the teams that are always find themselves in the playoff. And so if we can continue to do that, it's not a coincidence that it translates. But talking about some of these skilled position players that we're going after right now, a lot of really big names in this recruiting class, especially on the receiving front. So I think that's where we want to highlight this show. There's 3 of the top 5 players when it comes to the 247 composite that are crystal balled or have a chance or feeling a little bit warm to come to Texas. The number 1 overall wide receiver, DeCorian Moore out of Duncanville. We love the Duncanville boys. They make their way over to Texas, and it usually ends up, successful. Our guy, Alex January, Colin Simmons, Duncanville guys, big products for Texas. He's 100% right now crystal ball to come to Texas, which, we like our options, but could flip back and forth to Ohio State. That's always a team that's in the mix. The number 2 wide receiver, Khalil Lockett has a bunch of schools that are looking at him, but he's another one that, out of Sashi, Texas, that could be looking to come to Texas. Bama, A&M, those teams are in the mix, looking to stay in the SEC. And then the number 5 overall wide receiver in the composite, Jamie French out of Jacksonville, Florida, Texas, Ohio State. So if we can nab one, if not 2 of these guys, I mean, that sets you up for an outstanding wide receiver room that's already deep right now with the guys that we have, the young guys that we have. I mean, we mentioned already Bond, Silas Bolden transfers over from Oregon State, Matthew Golden from Houston, but those are all older guys that, they might be here for a year, maybe 2 years, and they're gone. Bond's gone after this year for sure. But you're looking at the other guys that are down there right now. I mean, we're huge fans of Jonte Cook, who's heading to his sophomore season. We're fans of Moore, who's got blazing speed, Ryan Niblett, Ryan Wingo, like these guys. That's a young core right now that can be one of the top, if not the top receiving room in the nation. And we're looking to add 3 of the top 5 guys in this class. So a lot of good things on the horizon in that receiving room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Duncanville thing is huge. I mean, already having, like you were saying, Simmons in January in the building, right, and continuing that Duncanville pipeline with DeCorian and Moore, that's massive as well. And I think such a great thing. Like Jonte Cook was one of the top recruits, right? Didn't get really much playing time at all. We brought in all these we brought in 3 transfers you just listed. By the way, we'll see what the kid from Oregon State can do. He's a gadget guy. He should be fun. Golden's going to play for sure. Yep. Bond, we just discussed being a first-round pick. Did Jonte Cook transfer? No, he stood his ground. Did Ryan Niblett switch? No, he stood his ground. So it's really, you talk about guys in draft classes and teams being flash in the pan, in terms of being able to produce talent for the next level. When you see this type of influx and lack of exodus the Longhorns have endured over the last 2 seasons with their success and their recruiting success, that speaks volumes to my confidence in our ability to continue to churn out, NFL talent and continue to turn out these types of draft classes. Guys aren't leaving. They know. A.D. Mitchell took him 1 year. He propelled, and he should have been a first-round pick. He propelled to a second-round pick. Jonathan Brooks played 9 games as our starting. Brooks played 9 games like our starting running back. That was it. It was the Bijan Robinson show. Jonathan Brooks, the afterthought, and he's the top running back taken. So, yeah. I don't know. It's not Bama level yet, but it's like heading. That's the direction we're looking to get. Where you need one good year, and you could score.
It's really turns into a testament of what Nick was talking about at the beginning of the show, where if you're performing at the highest of stages, NFL scouts, GMs are more willing to take a shot at you, even if you haven't had the same amount of tape, played in the same amount of games as some of the more experienced players coming out of college football from quote unquote lesser teams, right? Because they trust the coaching from the staffs who are consistently getting to the college football playoff, and they trust the coaching from the staffs and the development of staffs who are playing in the best leagues in the Big Ten and in the SEC. And I think, that consideration was probably already happening with our team in the last 2 years. And I think it'll even get more and more present for NFL GMs going forward when they're evaluating Texas Longhorn talent. So talking about the depth of the wide receiver room, like I'll point to the team that lost in the national championship. You want to look at the Washington Huskies and how many of the players from that team would have been mocked to be drafted prior to last year's season. And then after they end up going and losing to Michigan in the championship. Jalen Polk, McMillan, Rome Odunze, all drafted. Every wide receiver in that wide receiver room, of course, highly touted and vocalized from college football personalities all across the board, saying that they had an incredible wide receiver room from a talent standpoint. But we just listed all these different names. And just because they only end up with 600 receiving yards and they're our 4th receiver, if they're talented and they test well in the combine, like they're going to get drafted. So I'm not surprised that Niblett and Jonte stayed and didn't transfer, just because they're not necessarily going to be our number 1. And Jonte, I think that one's a little bit up in the air. I know we're talking a lot about Bond, but Would we be surprised if Jonte Cook ends up as our most productive receiver next year? Absolutely not.
No.
But both of those guys staying, like there was opportunity elsewhere. There always will be with the level of talent that we're currently bringing in at the University of Texas for them to go somewhere else to play and to get a ton of targets.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're going to have the same level of reverence going into the NFL draft. And compete for Blitnikoffs and compete for SEC championships. And also, if we can really cement ourselves entering the SEC as a top dog in that conference year in, year out, going to the college football playoff and competing for a national championship.
And we're looking at Ohio State too, right? Like all these top recruits have Ohio State right there in the mix too. They're taking official visits there. And that's a similar team where they're constantly turning out guys in the NFL. We've seen over the last couple of drafts, they've got first rounders left and right. Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson a few years ago, Abuka is going to be huge this year. And like their receiving rooms are just as deep every single season. Guys stay there. And so if we can replicate what they're doing, not carbon copy it, but at least keep the guys that are in Texas to not go over to Ohio State and keep them here in the hometown. Cause that's like been our issue for the past couple of years. I mean, we're Jackson Smith and Jigba, Texas guy. Garrett Wilson, Texas guy. Like the fact that they're going all the way to Ohio State and not staying in state, I think we're starting to kind of flip that narrative a little bit, and we're seeing that right now with DeCorian Moore, with Lockett as well. I mean, these guys are looking to stay in their home turf. Some official visits coming up next week. This is the time when all these guys take their visits. We obviously just got the Coleman brothers that just committed, the twins out of Cedar Hill. That's huge on the O-line.
And twins.
And they're twins. Yeah, they're taking their visit, but huge other recruits coming in. Michael Terry's the headline here. He's a 5-star number 1 athlete on threes rankings. He is a beast on the ground and in the receiving game. So interested to see how Texas would seem to utilize him. I mean, a lot of time when they're taking these visits, you kind of have to see like what the kid wants to play. Does he want to play offense or defense? Because he had a big year on the defensive side of the ball, but he had 32 touchdowns last year as a junior, 560 receiving yards and 999 yards on the ground. So kid can really do it all. But yeah, he's out of Alamo Heights in San Antonio. So that's another one that you want to keep in your backyard. Right now, it looks like it's between us and Nebraska. If I'm a recruit, it's a no-brainer to me where I'm going. Another one, Caleb Edwards, out of California. He's a tight end. Looking to swoop him up. He's right now looking at all those old Pac-12 schools like UCLA and Washington, but tight end's a position that we're looking for a guy to kind of cement themselves in here. We already have one big recruit already committed to us in Amari Winston out of Georgia, but as you can see these past couple of years with Jadavian Sanders, the tight end position's so pivotal. Josiah Sharman, he's a defensive lineman out of Sacramento, 3-star, looking to take a visit here as well. And then Caleb Chester out of Missouri City. So pretty decently sized official visit next Friday, June 7th. This summer is going to be huge. The 21st, there's 17 guys visiting. On the 14th, there's 16 guys visiting. So, we'll see if we can lock some of these guys up when it comes down to it. The 21st is a big one. That's where we're getting those top receivers, Khalid Lockett, Jamie French, another guy, Michael Fasusi is a huge offensive tackle out of Louisville, who is also looking to commit to Texas right now. He's 100% crystal ball to us. So it's going to be a big summer.
Great pronunciation, by the way. You really rattled through all those guys and dominated that. That last one.
You should not agree with that.
That last one was you just nailed that last one with confidence.
Sorry, was the last offensive lineman Louisville, Texas, or
Louisville, Texas.
Okay.
No, like Louisville, Texas.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, he's the number 3 offensive tackle in the nation, number 12 overall prospect in the nation, according to On3. So that'd be a huge get if we can grab him. Right now.
That tight end was from Cali?
Tight ends from Cali, yep.
Give me that, dude.
El Dorado.
Give me that. Like, you talk about not carbon copy. That's the only thing I honestly disagree with is like not carbon copying Ohio State. Carbon copy Ohio State. Why not? Ohio State had Chris Olave from San Diego. Like, go get it. Go around the country and just get everybody.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's it. It's a matter of like getting these guys to also gel too. Like these recruiting visits, like I don't know like if it comes down to like having the players pick which weekend they come, or if like the university is like, hey, you should come on this weekend. But like KJ Lacey, quarterback, he's going that weekend too, the 21st, where all those big recruits are going. And he's our quarterback recruit for 2025, and he's been very outspoken about being all in on the Longhorns, despite having to probably be behind Arch when he gets here. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think these guys can really mesh together. This could be a historic weekend for Texas if we can get all these guys to recruit or commit after their visits.
Tyler Owens too, by the way, is another quarterback who you could be behind. Trey Owens, who is one of the most outspoken people on all of Twitter about recruiting people to Texas. Yeah. So I think it's a really interesting point, like how they manipulate, or if there is any manipulation in these visits. I'm sure there is, right? Get all these guys in the same room, get them with KJ Lacey, which is great. Like that could be your quarterback, right? And get to know him, and he's already in. So having a good mix of guys who are already committed, who play a similar position as you, to get you on board. Like, I don't know, dude. Like, look at all the photos we see. Remember the photos of Judy, Ruggs, Devonta Smith, and Waddle? The photos of the Ohio State. Don't you want to be in one of those photos? Like there was a photo about our running back room. Yep. Brooks, Bijan. I don't know. Do you want to be one? Yeah, those iconic photos that people post. Yeah, I think it's all really great stuff, and hopefully we get all three of those receiving recruits.
Yeah, hopefully some big news coming soon, though. I mean, we got some big boys in the interior, but nothing gets us going like some skilled guys who can blow the top off.
Couple of wide receivers blow top off, score some TDs, and we loved Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. Those are just such household names for us, and so hopefully you get more of those guys in the mix.
Just positioning ourselves in 2020 in the classes of 2025 and 2026 too, in the top 10, in the top 7, top 5 of the rest of the schools in college football. It's always good for Sark to have that hype behind our university, and right now I think we're at I think like 16th on 247. Like we need to go up a little bit. We need to grab a couple of recruits here, make some noise.
It's a domino effect, Like I said, like when you're looking at this draft class, guys get excited and they feel like they can be a part of something like that as well. I mean, it helps that Xavier went in the first round to the Chiefs, sitting courtside next to Travis and Patrick Mahomes at the Mavs game. Love that, like that, little things like that, kind of go in the back of these kids' mind. They're like, hey, that can be me someday.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I mean, dude, like Xavier Worthy, everyone mocked him to the Chiefs. That was the number one team he went. Like he got to go to where he wanted to go.
Right.
Like it all is pretty sick. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we get some big news. And I will say the one thing I always think about recruiting this early in the season, like it hasn't even started yet, really. Guys could always flip again, right? And it's how we'll play in the fall will really dictate who comes and who goes for our recruiting class. And that is more so, again, we say this every year. I feel for the past 3 years, I feel more confident this year than I did last year, than I did the year before that will be the backbone of how we continue to get these guys. And it's a great sword to fall on.
For sure.
Fisher DeSopoulos, DJ Nicky Snacks Crider. We'll see you guys later this week, because we're going back to twice a week now. So sorry, Toss. I know you wanted me to clarify that at the top of the show.
It's all good. Just for our listeners, we want to give you more content throughout this summer to get things excited and moving prior to the season. So twice a week, maybe more, depending on guests coming in and out of the show. Get Quan back in the mix as well, so you guys can listen to one of the voices of the Texas Longhorns. Obviously, Quan Cosby, everybody loves him. He's a Longhorn legend. But yeah, we'll be back later this week with more recruiting news, hopefully, and maybe we'll touch a little bit on where softball is, and baseball's been tough and hasn't been the best, but we'll give some updates on other sports for Texas Longhorns as well.
We probably should definitely touch on softball. So it's a great call. Our women's softball team is pretty special.
Number one,
baby.
And at a certain point, maybe in the summer, we can do a breakdown and eval of just where the Longhorns ended up on the particular teams in the NFL draft, and kind of outlook for them in the what we expect for them in the season, how much run they'll get, and what the fans of those different NFL organizations can expect from our guys that we got to watch closely on the 40 acres. We were talking about the Panthers at the beginning of this show. That offense is going to feature a lot of Longhorns with Brooks and with Jatavian Sanders. So hopefully they can make some serious noise there.
Yeah, I mean, I think both guys will be great fits, but I think it's a great idea for content that we will give the fans this summer. We'll see you guys next time. Get your horns up. We out ya. We love ya.
Okay.